Press the record button, what it'll do is it'll take the orientation from that moment you press the record button. So oftentimes you might have a vertical orientation on your phone, you hit the record button, and then you turn it sideways to get, say, a horizontal video or vice versa. The problem is it takes the orientation from that first frame or right when you click the record button. So what you could do in the future is if you want to record a horizontal video, rotate your camera first, then hit the record button. Alternatively, if you want a vertical video, orient your phone in the vertical orientation, then hit the record button, and your video will be in the right direction.
Your mobile device, such as an iPhone, do it horizontally, like this. See? Just like this. You should not be holding it like this. You should be holding it like this. Movie screens are horizontal. Televisions are horizontal. Our eyeballs are horizontal. Wrong. Right.
Unlock the iPhone. Bring in an object you wish to record. I'll just bring in this glass to drink water with. And now go to camera, video, rotate the phone. We can have the flash if required to. On, yes. Record the video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The video has now been recorded. Remove the flash. Go back to your iPhone homepage. Go to Photos, Camera Roll. We have the video. Click on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it for this video. I'll see you guys on the next.
To reveal it, maybe create a bit more anticipation rather than just cutting straight to that location. We could, for example, start from behind these rocks and then lift the camera up to reveal our location. Let's give it a go. This time I'm going to tap and hold my focal point to lock focus and exposure, hit record, and then bring my camera down nice and low to the ground and use these rocks and grass as a way to reveal this location. I'm going to smoothly and slowly lift my camera up whilst crouching and then stand up and lift my camera as far as it will go. Let's take a look. And just like that, we've created a much more interesting shot that reveals this location. Camera movement and angles. Now, the UK has had a lot of rain recently, and as you can see, this part of the land has completely flooded. It's a total bog, rather disgusting, not very interesting, is exactly what a beginner might say. Whereas I see this as an opportunity to be more creative and get much more dynamic shots. This bog, this flooded patch of land, is actually creating a really nice reflection. To the untrained eye, it's an ugly bog, but with a bit of creativity, we can make our footage look much more interesting. Here's how a beginner might shoot this bog. This bog is disgusting and I have no idea why I'm here. They may just point their camera down like this, not a particularly flattering angle. And yeah, I would agree with the beginner. This bog does not look good. But look, let's use this water to our advantage to capture some much more creative looking shots. Now look, here's a little trick for you, okay? Now what you'll notice is that with smartphones, the lenses are normally in one of the corners. So for this, we want to spin our camera around because I want to try and get my lens as close as I can to the water. I'm also going to select slow motion for this. I'm going to use the wide angle lens. So we're in slow motion, 120 frames per second. We've got our lens nice and close to the water. I'm just going to tap to lock focus and exposure. I'm going to hit record. And I'm going to lean as far as I can over this water with my lens nice and close to the water. And I'm going to pull back. Like that. Now, was that the best shot in the world? No, of course it wasn't, but it was a lot better than shooting it at eye level and looking down. At least we used this water to our advantage and tried to get much more creative with our footage. Now, a lot of the techniques that I'm teaching you today all come down to mindset and just thinking differently when you're out on a shoot. A beginner sees a flooded patch of land, a disgusting bog, whereas someone who's professional and experienced sees a creative opportunity. Now, a beginner might look at this tree and think, well, I want to capture all of the tree in this shot. So again, at eye level, I'm going to point my camera down and then tilt up to show the top of the tree, like this. So what do we do to make this shot more interesting, and how can we keep our audience engaged? Well, we could start by getting much more creative with our camera angles and movement. This time I'm going to get nice and close to the tree. I'm going to point my camera up and then pull down whilst rotating the camera. Let's take a look. Another fantastic spot here, just looking out with this incredible view across Dartmoor. I really want to include this in the sequence. Now, this is what a beginner might do. Okay, so I've got my standard lens. I'm not going to lock focus and exposure, but I just want to show off this location. So I'm going to hit record. I'm going to go for a classic pan. This is the go-to beginner maneuver. Just a pan from left to right. Now, there's nothing wrong with a pan, they're not great. They do look a little bit amateur. You don't see them often in Hollywood feature films. The reason being that when you pan, the camera doesn't move. It just stays on one axis. So it goes left, right, a tilt, up and down. Whereas in cinema, in feature films, the camera tends to move. It's either pushing forward, it's pulling back, it's sliding left, right, it's on a jib, a crane, getting lifted up. Whereas a pan, it's basic and it feels amateur. Not knocking pans. There is a time and a place for them, but just not today. Now for me, a pan isn't going to quite cut it for this shot. I really want the sequence to feel cinematic. I want it to feel like these shots belong in a Hollywood film. For me, I want to try and replicate a gimbal movement, a smooth push forward shot that shows off this landscape. So I'm going to select my wide angle lens. That way I'm instantly going to see more of this environment. I'm going to tap the screen to lock focus and exposure as always. I'm going to hit record and start walking forwards. And as long as I walk nice and steady, holding my phone with two hands, I get a nice stable shot. With the right technique and image stabilization, of course, you're able to replicate a camera move very similar to something shot on a gimbal. Transitions. Now, there are many types of transitions when it comes to filmmaking and video production, and these are a great way to make your footage look much more creative and professional. But if not executed correctly, can still make your footage look cheap and amateur. So let me show you some common mistakes and ways to fix them. Okay, so let me show you a basic wipe transition. This one's super easy, okay? So easy, in fact, I'm able to do it sat down. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to frame our shot. We're going to need two shots for this. This will be our first. Tap and hold your screen to lock focus and exposure. I know I say this all the time, but with this shot in particular, it's really, really important. I'm then going to slide my camera to the right using this rock as foreground and as a way of creating a wipe transition. The aim here is to fill the entire frame with something in the foreground, like this. Now, for our second shot, we're going to go to a new location and find another focal point. We're then going to replicate the exact same camera movement, same speed, everything. And this time, we're going to reveal our focal point. Now let's edit these two shots together using nothing but a simple cut. Now let's add a little bit more editing, music, and sound effects. Okay, so that's how a professional would capture one of these wipe transitions, but what sort of mistakes might a beginner make? Well, for start, not locking focus and exposure. Just look at this shot. Camera slides, but see how not only the exposure changes, but also the focus. The camera is now focused on this rock in the foreground. Let's look at the second shot. Camera movement not consistent and a horrible looking exposure change in the sky. Now let's edit these two clips together for comparison. Camera slides, exposure change, focus change, inconsistent movement, much less seamless and nowhere near as good as our first transition. Okay, moving on. Now, a lot of the